Hello, and welcome to another show. Today, I'm going to talk about this sculpture that I have sitting on my desk that's taking up a lot of space and I have nowhere to put it. This giant clay sculpture that's chicken wire wrapped around a bucket with some PVC pipe inside of it and covered in, 100 pounds of clay, something crazy like that. But, there it is. I sculpted that for Jeremy Fish. Jeremy and I worked together on a lasting project in front of the Haight-Ashbury Art Center. And today I'm going to talk about that and ask Jeremy Fish some questions about the sculpture. So let's get started. The first question I would like to ask Jeremy is, I don't even need to preface it with a question, but let's get a little backstory on the silly pink bunny from the man himself, Jeremy Fish.
In the mid-90s, when I was in college, my friends and I lived in this neighborhood. I always loved the Lower Haight, and when there was a mural project going on down here on the corner, I was asked to participate in a mural, and I had always really admired the architecture of the previous structure and how it had a shelf built into it, and specifically asked if I could have that section, although I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do with it. Coincidentally, at the same time, a friend of mine who lives in Los Angeles and works in film and television, making large-scale fiberglass sculptures, hit me up and said, hey, if you ever have an idea for a fiberglass sculpture, look at this giant skittle I just made in New York. And so that inspired kind of heading down to LA and creating this giant bunny to put on that platform to, put something in this project where they were trying to paint that corner. That statue was both loved and hated. It was used as a ladder, it was used as a toilet, it had graffiti sprayed on it, it had all kinds of crazy stuff happen to it. In the time that it sat there, the people in the surrounding neighborhood and the city at large, some people really grew to love it, even though it was kind of strange and stuck out of the project and seemed a little odd to have sitting there on the corner. For me personally, it represented my circle of friends and my background, not only before I moved to San Francisco, but in the time that I've lived here. I used it as a symbol for me and my artwork, and it's something I started drawing in high school, so it was interesting to see it in 3 dimensions, sitting on this platform and watching the neighbors and the city respond to it. And as time moved on and the construction project of redeveloping this block moved on, eventually we knew that it would all get demolished, including the statue. There was some interest in saving it, so much interest actually that some really good local heroes stole it and tried to preserve it. But I felt that it had lived a long enough life, and that if, we were going to move forward into the next phase of the statue, it made more sense to have a funeral and kill it off, because somewhere in the middle, some really responsible parties in this neighborhood developed a Kickstarter so that people could donate to a possible bronze version of it. The Kickstarter was successful and was contributed to by tons of anonymous parties, tons of people that wanted their name on it, sponsors, and as a matter of fact, our current mayor donated money out of her pocket when she was just the district supervisor to see this thing come to life in bronze. So I felt like the original fiberglass statue, which by now has been pretty destroyed by people climbing all over it and people kicking it and people smashing it, and like I said, people using it as a toilet and a ladder to get into this crazy drug den that was above it. The fiberglass had lived a great life, and it was time for the bronze to come to life and replace it. You can't imagine how honored I was to know that so many people felt so strongly about raising money to create a permanent version of it that, gave me more pride than a lot of things I've done artistically just because I'm not a sculptor. Fortunately, I paired up with my friend Brin, who is a sculptor, and helped me make this thing symmetric and perfect, unlike the first one, which was a little lumpy and a little lopsided and a little off balance. Because this was other people's money and going to live here longer than I will, we made this permanent version as accurate and as close to symmetric as possible. And, fast forward a lot of years down the road from that original pink fiberglass, you can't imagine how I feel when I walk down the street and see this thing sitting here. It will outlast probably most of the art that I've made in my life, and more importantly, affects people on a daily basis, either making them happy or curious or proud. It is probably one of the things I am most proud of in my career of almost 20 years making art in this city, that if and when I have to leave or I die or a combination of those two, this thing will be here long after I am, hopefully telling a strange story about my life, my circle of friends, and my career.
If you could share a concise bit of information with your younger self, what would it be?
I would tell people to follow their dreams.
What about you? If you could talk to yourself 20 years younger,
That's what I would say.
That's what you would say.
I would also tell myself to believe in myself and be a little more confident, and don't spend so much time in the studio maybe, and get out and nurture relationships and friendships because they're equally as important as making art. I would also tell myself to never veer from my direction. Make confident decisions and stick to them. And most importantly, don't let anyone deter you from the path that is making art, because it's what you're supposed to be doing on Earth and you're not very good at much else.
You've exhibited internationally and your fans are all over the world. How has having a permanent sculpture in the city of San Francisco changed the way that you approach projects today?
You know, all accomplishments in this career give you glimmering moments of confidence and pride, but unfortunately they're all very temporary. When this was placed here a year and a half ago, I felt like I was on top of the world and that opportunities would continue to happen like this, and they have. I mean, it is a one opportunity to the next kind of self-driven career where you're your own boss, you're your own cheering section, you're your own factory, you're your own union management, you're the whole company. And with that comes a lot of responsibility to keep things moving forward, and the addiction from one success to the next. And I don't know, I guess I went from this to the next success and that to the next success, and at some point I kind of forget about this thing until I'm sitting right here, and it does still make me proud, and especially to the connection of the building it stands in front of. The Haight Street Art Center is a really important cultural center that's very new to San Francisco at a time where you can't believe this thing got built when it did, and I'm honored to have this thing out in front of a place that exhibits a lot of guys that I've looked up to through my whole career, and artists that have made much larger contributions to this city and the planet. So it's, I'm glad to have it here.
We came here like 5 years ago to make a stop and look at this property as a possibility for our art center. And when we encountered the bunny and all the murals, it seemed like it was just destined to happen that we would end up here. And not to say that we were, immediately convinced and moved in, but it sure had a big impact on us. I mean, the thing was so important to this neighborhood and the community, and that's what our art, what we present here is about, is artwork that galvanizes people, connects people, informs people, and has a positive impact on their little groups. And so we're very pleased to have that bunny out in front.
Looking back on all the work, does anything stand out for you?
I would say the finance and the skill. Without the finance of all the generous people that donated to make this happen, we wouldn't have the largest crowd-funded bronze statue in the state of California. And I would say the other half of that recipe is the skill set to actually make it happen, which is Brin. And I could have made this happen a bunch of different ways. I enjoyed working with somebody that I was previously friends with, that I trusted and was confident that his skill set was enough to make this a reality. And I don't ever look at this or tell anybody about it without thinking about the fact that I didn't do this by myself. The idea, the crowd, the finance, all that stuff happened out of momentum from something I did with a friend of mine, but that was my friend's fiberglass skill set that made that happen. I'm not a sculptor traditionally. I mean, I could take a piece of clay and make it look funny or cool, but that isn't something that I'm not this skilled at it. And so without the help of my friend Justin Mulkey or his assistant Nick Nakamura, I wouldn't have made the fiberglass statue, which in turn built the momentum for me to make this with Brin. So I think it is both the generosity of people that donated, but more importantly, borrowing the skill sets from friends of mine that are more talented three-dimensionally than I am. And it's something I don't ever want to be left out of this story or this description. I didn't do this on my own, It was other people's generosity of both their time, their skill, and their money.
And lastly, going forward, do you see yourself doing sculpture in the future?
Yeah, I'll do more of them, but only when the situation asks for it. Like, I don't plan to pursue it for fun or the hell of it, like a lot of things creatively or artistically that you should pursue. Sculpture is one of those things that, because it takes a team of people, I'm used to working pretty independently on things, which is why this was a different experience. And I probably wouldn't make another bronze without there being the right recipe, much like there was with this, where finance and friends with skill and my ideas all come together to make something like this. And when the situation calls for it, I would do it again. Is that 3D printed?
Yep.
Why is it so heavy?
Because it's solid glow-in-the-dark pink.
Son of a bitch. Thanks, man.
It glows in the
Nice.
dark. It actually glows red.
It's incredible how accurate it is to the fucking, like, the 3D
original.
file. Yeah.
So the
and all the little like ripples and dings that we were trying to scrub out of this thing, you don't notice at all at this scale.
Yeah. So that's from the 3 foot, and then it's shrunk down to 5 inches.
But I
This
mean,
is
when
from
you
the
shrink
3
it, there's like little to no, like it looks flawless pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, man. That was nice of you.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir.
Pleasure.